So now we have planned everything, let's start with the 3D work. Now we sit down in front of our computer and start to create our scene. Adding an object here, adding another object there, then quickly save the scene on our desktop. Add another folder here, and at some point you end up in a big mess. A messed up project folder leads to a messed up mind that blocks our creativity, and in the end we can't go on with our project. That means, besides our general planning of our project, we also have to plan our project folder. Basically, we know what kind of files we will create during this project. We need textures, we create 3D data, that means the blend files. Maybe we have some documents there, maybe a screenplay or some documents about our plannings. And for all this data, we exactly have to know where to save them. That means we don't have to misuse our desktop for saving all the files if we don't know where to save them. If you set up your project folder, you have to keep in mind less is more. That means if you only have one document, you don't need, for example, 6 subfolders where you don't have any clue where to save this file. In actual fact, we just create the folders when we have the files. Besides our project folder, we should know how to name the different files. That means don't give random names to your different files, name them clearly so you find anything when you need it. On the one hand, a structured project folder is very important for personal use. That means if you open up your folder again in 3 months, for example, then you know exactly where to find what. And on the other hand, a structured project folder is very important when collaborating in a team. That means every team member knows where to save and find what in the project folder. Over the past years, we have worked on several projects like film projects or 3D projects, and over the time we have developed our personal project folder, which we'll try to use for all our projects. Certainly, from time to time we still add something or delete something in our folder structure, but all in all, this works quite good. This folder structure I show you right now is just an example how we did it. You can use this as reference, you can do it exactly like we did it, but also it's okay if you develop your own folder structure. In general, we do it like this. We create one project folder, and this has 3 subfolders. Fin, that stands for final, then we have the prod folder that stands for production, and then we have the lib folder that stands for library. In the folder fin, we finally save our finished project, like a 3D animation, a movie, or whatever this project is about. The great thing about that is when you have already created several projects, you simply can click into your project folders and you know exactly where to find the final product. In our lib folder we save everything we have to store, like rendered files, photos we have made, footage, etc. Here, for example, I have the folder ref. There we stored everything we need for references, images, photos, whatever. Then we have our rend folder, that's a folder for rendering. Here we can save all the renderings while doing this project, like test renders, final renders, and so on. So these renders we don't need to change directly, so they are stored here in this folder, and then we can use an image manipulation program or a video edit program and use these rend files from here. But in the lib folder everything stays in place. Then we have our production folder. Here will the main production take place. That means here we will create all of our 3D models, our textures, our concept art, and so on. So here everything happens what will be edited. This project is a 3D project. That means our 3D folder is very important for our project. And here we can create 3 subfolders, for example. One called edit, one assets, and one scenes. In the folder scenes, we save, for example, our pre-visualization we have created in one of the earlier videos. And also this previous file we can use for our final scene as starting point. In the edit folder we are creating and editing all of our 3D objects like the robot or the trees, and here we can save this also in different versions to have backups. And all the final objects like the final tree, the final robot and so on, we save with a clear name without version 1, 2, 3, etc. inside our assets folder. So, and after that, if we want to edit our tree, we go back to our edit folder, edit our tree, and then oversave the file of the tree inside the assets folder. So inside our assets folder, we always have the final assets for our scene, and always with the same name. And we do it like this because in the end, we link all our assets from the assets folder into our scene. The linking works like this. All the different assets are staying in the assets files, but a link is set into our final scene. That means we can see the objects in our final scene, but the original data are still in the assets file. And if you update, for example, the tree in the assets file, save it with the same name, the object automatically gets updated in our final scene. The great thing about that is that we save memory because the memory is split up between all the different assets files and our main scene. That means the original object is in the asset file, there the memory is used, and the linked object in our main scene doesn't really use any space. So the scene file is very small in the end. And in our scenes folder we can also save different versions of the same scene, scene 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. to have some backups. And the assets still keep linked also in the version 1, 2, 3, etc. If we're now working with different blend files, it's very important to have a consistent measure. That means if we just start modeling all of our objects in the different assets files and then link them into our main scene, it could be that the robot is way too small, the tree is extremely big, and maybe the 3D character has also not the right size. That means we have to determine a certain measure we use in all our blend files. If you only work in one 3D application, like here in Blender, it's not really important what measure this is, but it has to be consistent in all the different files. But to keep it simple, we can say one Blender unit is 1 meter in our scene. That means the grid inside Blender is a very good orientation for us. Another way to ensure a consistent measure is to create a reference object. For example, a rough shape of a 3D character, which represents the size of a human being. And this we can simply copy and paste with Ctrl-Z and Ctrl-V into our different assets files, and then we can create all the objects in relation to this reference object. And then if we link everything in our main scene, the proportion will fit together. These are two ways to ensure a consistent measurement. In the end, it's important that our final image looks good. That means we don't have to measure all the different objects in real life, like the tree is exactly 5.6 meters or something like that. We just have to take care that everything fits together in the end.